Hello, my name's Tobin, and today I'm going to be talking to you about drought here in Colorado. First off, though, I want to talk to you about a couple subjects that'll help us get a better understanding of what the effects of drought are here in Colorado. First is the precipitation and the hydroclimate here of Colorado, and then second is the water use here in Colorado. Both of those have very large impacts on drought here in Colorado because of the great variability of the hydroclimate and of the usage here in Colorado. So I'm here on the south side of Denver, next to the South Platte River. It's one of the 7 major river basins here in Colorado, and Colorado's been separated into those 7 water basins because of the great variability of the climate here. Some places in the mountains can receive up to 50 inches of precipitation over the course of a year, generally mostly in snowpack during the winter months. We also have some places like the San Luis Valley that receive only 8 inches of precipitation a year. Now this creates a great variability in the hydroclimate. Part of that's just due to the geography of the land here. There's also some telecommunications coming into play here. There's a lot of impact from the Pacific Ocean bringing in moisture during the winter months. And then during the summer months, that jet stream kind of calms down a little bit. We get a little bit less moisture here in the air during the summertime, so it creates pretty arid summer in the mountains and on the western mesa. But here on the Rockies and on the eastern plains, we get summer monsoon from the Gulf of Mexico bringing in moisture during the summer months. So there's great variability in the amount of precipitation per year, as well as the types and also when that occurs. Every month here in Colorado is the wet season for one place and the dry place for another. So that creates great variability in the climate, creating perfect conditions for drought to occur over the course of 3 to 6 month periods. Another large impact on the hydroclimate here in Colorado has been climate change. Over the last 50 years, there's been about a 2-degree increase in average temperatures across the entire state. There's also been an increase in variability of precipitation across the state, meaning the dry years are drier and the wet years are wetter. Now what this has led to as a result is longer periods of drought. Instead of 3 to 6 month drought periods, which were pretty common in the past, they're now becoming more extended periods. We had drought that lasted nearly from 2001 to 2018, with 2018 marking the first time that not a single part of the state was in drought. Now the second thing we need to look at when we're exploring drought in Colorado is the water uses here in Colorado. You can see we're out in Elizabeth, Colorado here on the eastern plains, and you can see it's quite different from the South Platte. And so the demands and the uses are going to be different, and also the type of precipitation that falls here is going to be different. But we're going to explore the uses here. In Colorado, there's a lot of different types of uses. Some of them are consumptive and some of them are non-consumptive. Some of the non-consumptive uses are tourism, such as skiing, whitewater rafting, fishing, boating, and other outdoor activities. Those are common year-round. Now there's also a great demand for agriculture. In agriculture, there's demand year-round as well. There's lots of demand in the summertime as there's many irrigated crops. Now Colorado is shifting more towards dryland farming, but that can reduce yields up to 50%. So managing that water balance is a very important equation to the Colorado water usage. There's also the demand for winter wheat, which is a common food for livestock during the winter time. So managing those demands is also needed year-round. So managing and budgeting the water here in Colorado is very important and can be even more of a further strain during drought years. So we don't just need to talk about water usage here in Colorado. We also need to talk about water usage in areas outside of Colorado. There's several states that rely on water from Colorado, as well as Mexico. Due to the fact that none of the rivers enter Colorado, they all leave Colorado. Part of that's due to the continental divide running up the middle of the state, sending half the water to one side into the Atlantic Ocean, the other half to the Pacific Ocean. That creates quite a bit of giving that Colorado's involved in. We're involved in several interstate agreements and a couple international treaties determining what we do with our water and how we have to manage and budget that water for use outside of the state of Colorado. The municipal water supply here in Colorado is another large demand of water here. I'm standing in front of a drill here being built for a new development. And because of the constantly increasing population of Colorado, that demand is always increasing. That, along with the variable demands in agriculture and tourism, create for an interesting water budget here in Colorado. This complex water management budget is part of the reason why Colorado has to be on the forefront of drought management and water management policies. In the 1980s, some of the original drought management techniques came out, providing for task forces and teams to study and manage the different sources of water here in Colorado. Now that we've explored some of the issues with the hydroclimate here in Colorado, as well as the water usage here in Colorado, we need to talk about the effects of drought here. Some of the main effects of drought are an impact on the tourism business. That can impact the economy of the entire state, with water shortages cutting down the ski season to cutting down the whitewater rafting season. Those economic effects can be felt across the entire state. There's also effects on the agriculture here in the state. As I talked about, it's a great usage of water here in Colorado, and that reduction in water can cause farmers to go to dryland farming instead of irrigated farming. Next, there's also some ecological impacts of drought. There's an increased capacity for pine beetle, which gets into the trees when their defenses are down with that lack of moisture. More pine beetle is able to kill those trees, which then in turn causes an issue with the already dried out trees that are now dead, causing greater risk for fires. I'm here in Colorado Springs, where the Waldo Canyon fire hit in 2012 and was one of the most destructive fires of this century. With the climate change we've been seeing with higher temperatures and drier seasons, the 21st century has been the most fire-prone century we've seen to date, with 19 out of the top 20 fires happening in the last 20 years. So these effects of drought in Colorado are quite intense, and it's becoming more of an issue. We're starting to see long-term aridification instead of just seasonal droughts. And so that is why studying drought in Colorado is very important.